Wild West Tales. The sun had just begun its long climb when the plains woke. Dew still clung to the wild grass, each blade bending under the weight of tiny glass beads, trembling as if afraid to let go. The wind moved like an old friend wandering between fence posts and open gates, carrying the far-off creak of a wagon wheel. Somewhere out there, a rider silhouette blurred into line between earth and sky, the dust from his horse's hooves curling upward like smoke from a tired campfire. Some places never let go of the people who walked them. Some hearts never quite learned to leave. She had lived on the edge of this trading town for years, not because it was easy, but because it was hers. Her small ranch was a stubborn strip of land clinging to the prairie like a leaf refusing to pull the river. She rose before light, fed the horses before breakfast, mended fences in the same steady rhythm she had once mended her father's shirts. The townsfolk had a way of summing her up in a single breath, strong enough to last through winter, too proud to marry into comfort. She wore their judgments like dust on her boots, always there, but never heavy enough to slow her. They didn't know the cost of keeping land when the rest of your family lay under it. They didn't know how much courage it took to stand alone in a world built for pairs. It was in one of those restless summers that he arrived. The first man. He was all charm and clean boots, his smile as quick and bright as the gleam off his silver belt buckle. A cattle buyer from the next county, passing through with the kind of swagger that made shop girls straighten their aprons. He made her laugh in a way she hadn't since she was 17. Quick bursts that escaped before she could think. For a time, she let herself believe in the story he hinted at. Dances on Saturday nights, his hand steady at her back, maybe a share house with curtains that caught the morning sun. But slowly, his laughter began to fade in the spaces between them. He started to glance past her in conversations, measuring her against something softer, someone easier to fold into his life. It wasn't cruelty, just a quiet stepping back, like the tide. One Sunday morning, she saw him walking another woman to church, his hand resting lightly on her elbow. After that, the days felt longer. The wind had a hollow note to it. Even the sound of her boots on the barn floor seemed too loud in the early light. The elderly storekeeper noticed before she ever said a word. Some men don't know the gold they've walked away from, he told her while wrapping a sack of flour. And it's not your job to teach them. Autumn was nearing when she saw the second man for the first time. He came into town driving a freight wagon, the kind that rattled with every bump in the road, but carried everything from coffee beans to spare plow blades. His clothes were simple, his eyes weathered, the kind of eyes that had seen trouble and didn't flinch from it. Their first exchange was brief. He handed her a parcel, nodded, and moved on. The next week, another nod, another package. He didn't seem in a hurry to speak, and she didn't mind. There was no spark to set the air alight, only a sense of recognition, as though they had both survived the same winter in different towns. One evening, she watched him walk away toward the stables, his shadow stretching long in the copper light. Something stirred in her chest, not the quick flutter of infatuation, but the slow, steady pull of something that might last. The months turned with the same quiet rhythm as the freight wheels. Sometimes she saw him lifting a sack of grain into her wagon without a word. Other times, she'd find him at the blacksmith's, mending a bent axle. She once repaired a torn leather strap on his harness. He thanked her with a look that said more than any sentence could hold. Life in the town was a tapestry woven from small gestures. The widow who ran the boarding house kept a pot of stew for anyone passing by. A boy, no older than 12, followed the freight wagon through town, as if each delivery were part of some grand parade. Then the drought came. Ranchers gathered in the square, their voices sharp, the word water spoken like both a prayer and a curse. Dust hung in the air so thick you could taste it. It was during this lean season that the first man returned. He approached her outside the store, his voice all honeyed reason. They could join forces, he suggested, combine land, livestock, and the weight of their names. It would be practical, safe. She let the silence stretch between them before answering. "My heart isn't for trade," she said softly, then stepped past him. Weeks later, a storm rolled in without warning. The sky bruised purple, the wind carrying the metallic scent of rain. Word came that one of the supply wagons had broken down on the far ridge, the second man's wagon. If the storm hit before it was moved, the clay road would swallow the wheels whole. She saddled her horse without thinking. The ride was long, the wind whipping at her coat, each drop of rain stinging like grit. She found him crouched by the wagon, struggling with the ropes that held the load in place. They worked without speaking, her hands blistering as she pulled, his shoulders straining as he braced the wagon against the shifting ground. The rain came harder, pooling at their feet. Finally, with a last heave, the load was secure. They stood there in the downpour, breathless, water streaming from the brim of his hat. Their eyes met, a wordless exchange of respect, relief, and something else that neither had named. Back in town, the boarding house kitchen glowed with lamplight. They sat across from each other, steam curling from tin cups. She noticed his hands, scarred from years of work, yet steady and gentle. The widow, passing by with fresh bread, murmured with a knowing smile, "Some bonds are forged in rain." Weeks passed. He left for a long freight trip north. Before he went, she found something in her barn, a small wooden horse, carved smooth by a thumb. No note, no name, just a grain of the wood and the quiet truth it carried. I see you. I choose you. In the Wild West, love wasn't always declared in letters or rings. Sometimes it was carved in wood and left where only one heart would find it. When he returned, she was already walking toward the edge of town. The horizon burned gold, the sky stretching wide as forever. He stepped down from the wagon. No rushing embrace, no dramatic kiss, just two people falling into step beside each other, heading toward whatever might come. Some tales are written in gunpowder and glory. This one was stitched in patience, in respect, in the quiet decision to stay. And those are the ones that last.